Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Christmas news agenda. It's a very important work meeting. So joining me today is me, Fleet Street Fox, here from the Daily Mirror. And joining me today, because I've forgotten my script because I was doing something else. Sorry, I forgot that we were about to go live. It's such a grueling day. I'm joined by my fellow Mirror columnist, Mark Steele. Morning, Mark.
Hello, Susan. And we've got some, this is work. How can I get in that shot? I've got through most of that still and this stuff. What's this stuff?
I hope that's organic still. It's the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's just work. I'm sick of it.
There's too much work. Mike says.
Just sick of just working. It's all for all you people watching who are just not eating stuff like cheese. And this is the only reason why I was able to have 145 people around at the house all night was because I've been working on this. I reckon people ought to go out every Thursday and clap for me.
Why not? And Mike says, morning, Mike. Just getting out the cheese and pouring half a pint of wine into my news agenda mug. Good lad. That's the spirit. This is hard work after all. Now, we're going to have a quick skim through the news. We're also going to do you a Christmas quiz. But remember, this is the People's Pay-Per-View, so get into the comments, ask us your questions. That is also the place to give us your answers to the quiz. And remember, the best ones will be getting the news agenda mug. Everybody wants one. If Francis is watching, I'm still waiting for you to respond to my message, Francis, so I can send you one of the mugs, all right, before the end of the year. Danielle, it's not a party, it's work. Quite right. This is. I'm literally getting paid to do this. So what have we got today? Well, the Mirror has splashed on a festive pick and mix of cheer and fear, with news that the Omicron variant does seem to be milder than Delta, and Christmas is still on, but pubs are still suffering and New Year may not be toasted much at all. So Boris Johnson's fetish for saving Christmas has finally reached its happy ending last night, when the Prime Minister confirmed there would be no rules about socialising with family. But that's got less to do with the data and more to do with the fact he's left it so late he couldn't get Parliament back and the rules passed in time anyway. And inside on the 4-5 spread, the nation's landlords are less than chuffed, with repeated tales of losing thousands of pounds worth of Christmas bookings because all the panic has caused people to cancel. On top of that, Rishi Sunak's popped in from talking to private health firms in California to give them grants of up to $6,000 each, which won't come through in time, won't make up for it, and in the words of one publican, constitute, and I quote, lockdown on the cheap. So I suppose the question is, Mark, is any of this Christmas panic, lockdowns for us and probably a lock-in for them at some point in the future in the new year, is any of this going to work? Is any of this working well for Boris, do you think?
I'm not sure it's working for Boris. I think that Chris Whitty probably tomorrow, as I said in the column in the Mirror, that I think he ought to make an announcement, a very stern announcement, that there's nothing we can do about it now. We have to accept that the number of people who despise Boris Johnson is doubling every 2 days. And it's just by the time it gets to sort of a couple of days after Christmas, it probably will affect every single person in the country, especially anyone who's been in close contact with him. It just doesn't seem to be avoidable. I think he's absolutely, utterly stuffed. And it is fascinating. I think the one bit of cheer with this, because obviously it's really, 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 I'll be honest, I'm really starting to go off COVID. And I think the one cheery bit is it's just fascinating to watch the complete collapse of a leading political figure. And whereas sort of when it happens to all of them, it happened to Thatcher, it happened to Blair, but when it happened to them, because there was some stuff, I mean, I didn't like either of them, but because there was some substance to them, then sort of there was a residue of stuff that stayed and it ummed and ahed. But all there was to Boris Johnson, all there has ever been, has been image. And once that's gone, there's nothing. And when people are standing up at the darts and singing, this is his constituency. That is Boris Central, the darts. Oh, the darts, they're the people. And they're the people, yeah, give him due. We're bloody voting for the Brexit. And that's, and that's why they have these tournaments in places like Thurrock and those sort of Essexy places where they love, and they're standing up and singing that they hate Boris Johnson. There are all and the North Shropshire by-election, all those little reports you got where people said conservative activists who said I knocked on one door and there was a brigadier who was 83 who said I've always voted Conservative all my life, but as far as I'm concerned, Boris Johnson can be, and then about 20 beep 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 beep. That's rather my opinion. I fear on this particular. I think we really need to get rid. And it's just everyone. There's a massive banner over one of the bridges on the M25 round at Leatherhead that was going down to Brighton and went past it. Massive banner of a big ugly cartoon of Boris Johnson. Boris lies. And I know there's only one person who's done that, but it's been left there. Lots of people are taking pictures of it and love it.
Millions already steaming because they're on the M25 going round and round tailback. And then they see something else that makes them even more cross. It's like,
and I think he's hated and he's stuffed, and I suspect the people who bought into him are probably the ones who are most angry with him, a lot of them. And he's absolutely, there's nothing, because there's Thatcher stood for something, much as I didn't like it. She stood for something. Boris Johnson just stands for, I'm not a normal politician, I'm just here we go. And he thinks that bluster, cheese and wine, don't follow the rules. But this time it's just made so many millions of people furious. Obviously, lots of people were furious with him anyway. So I'm going to quite enjoy watching the demise of him as we sort of sit on our own, eating an olive for Christmas.
All the other examples you mentioned, Thatcher, Major Blair, that all happened after some, a couple of terms or a long period in power. This has happened. Boris Johnson's been in power for 2 years. 2 years. And it's totally down the pan. Now, Sally Ann was just saying there, £6,000 for pubs is not going to touch the sides. It's a bit of a waste. It's £1 billion, but it's not enough to pay the staff. It's not enough if you haven't got any customers whatsoever. People are leaving the hospitality industry. Landlords are finding something else to do. Lots are going to go bankrupt, which has a huge social and tax impact anyway. And right at the start of this, the scientists, the epidemiologists were saying it's a pandemic. You've got 5 years of this. This is 5 years. It's a war, right? And we're only 2 years in. We're not even yet. If this is like the Second World War, Boris Johnson loves his war analogies, then we're not yet even at the point of Dunkirk and the little boats. What point are we at, Mark, if this is the war?
No, we're past Dunkirk. That was 1940.
Are we? Okay.
We're nearly 2 years. We're in the Blitz. We're in the Blitz now. Oh, this is fun. This is the bit we enjoy.
Oh, that's nice. Things just rain, new variants just raining down on us constantly, and everyone put that light out.
I don't think it's as bad as that. I think there is a point now where, because I don't know, like I don't know. I'm in exile at the moment. I can't stay in my own house because my son's got COVID. but he's loving it. He's right as rain. He's all
well,
right. He's perfectly healthy, but he can't go out. So I
there is some
can't
good
stay
news.
at the house.
And Heather, in terms of whether you think there's a lockdown soon, the Politico website this morning is reporting on data that is yet to be published, so we haven't seen it. It's a leak to them about Omicron, showing that it is more mild, it is less serious than the Delta wave. So they're saying that you are less likely to have symptoms if you get it and less likely to get seriously ill, which is good news for all of us, you'd have thought. But those who do get it bad will still get it bad. The vaccines help with that. If you're unvaccinated, your chances of suffering from Delta are much higher. But there, because there's millions of unvaccinated, and of course children who also run a smaller but still existing risk of serious illness and long COVID. And because it's so very, 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 very infectious, lots of us are going to get it. And a statistically lower likelihood. It's very difficult saying some of this stuff when I've had some wine this early in the morning. A statistically lower likelihood of being hospitalized in a much physically larger group of people does still mean an awful lot of hospital beds getting filled up at a time when the NHS staff have to isolate, perhaps because they've got it, as well as dealing with all the winter car crashes, slips, falls, heart attacks, the other stuff they have to deal with every winter. Debbie there's going just citing shielding again, even though the government hasn't announced that. People are kind of following their own rules, aren't they, Mark? They're doing their own thing.
Well, I think that's good. I think there's something very healthy about this. Is that now, if you want to visit someone, a relative who's in hospital, and whereas last year the rules were that we didn't understand the rules. So if you had a relative who was in hospital, you didn't go and see them, you weren't allowed to visit them. Now, I think we understand that if you take 30 or 40 people and a load of balloons and some drink and maybe some Class A drugs, and you set up a few speakers and you dance all around the ward, that's fine. That's all right. That's allowed. And then in a year's time, you can either deny that it ever happened, or you can claim it was a work meeting.
Or
I think it's just a much
click the V's at the police.
Or you could just whatever you know, and yeah, they'll say yes, and then if you do that maybe tomorrow, then the day after the police will say we can't possibly investigate as that was in the past, and we can now only investigate crimes that haven't yet happened yet. There's new psychic police, science fiction police, which is very exciting, and the same in care homes. If you take 30 or 40 people in, if you can get a rapper to stand in the corner of the care home and rap about some of the people in there and the drips they're on, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, and you can take your mask off anywhere you are in a public place on a train, so long as you're singing.
Exactly.
Turn up if you hate Boris Johnson,
yeah,
kind of thing. Now, Paul says, I'm more worried about my mental health than COVID. We're not really adopting the right tone for you, I'm afraid, Paul. There are people who are still concerned about what's going to happen over the winter. It's a grim time for mental health anyway. And unfortunately, if your chances of getting through COVID are fairly good, then it does still mean you may still be impacted by other stuff. There are still 10% of the UK's workforce, the self-employed freelancers, who have had from Rishi Sunak for 2 years now. Never mind the piddling effort he gave to publicans yesterday. And there are people who are going to be suffering from not seeing their families because they decide that's the most sensible thing to do. So one other bit of good news, in a way, is that while we were expected to be having 200,000 Omicron infections a day about now, it's actually half that. And there's possibilities for that. It could be because they haven't let anyone do the tests because they've run out of tests. So we don't know who's got it. And it could also be that people have stopped being idiotic and started being more sensible, I suppose. Now, Mike says, I asked Mark last year if he would have Boris and Carrie round for Christmas, given the COVID restrictions. I remember he wasn't keen. Little did we know they were still partying. Do you remember that, Mark?
I can't. Well, I'll be honest. I can't exactly pinpoint Mike's question, but I think I probably wouldn't have been keen. But I think they can come round now. But my house is sort of has a great big sort of barbed wire fence round it with COVID sort of nailed to the door, like something in the plate. So while my son sits there drinking all my beer.
Yeah, all right, then, Boris and Carrie.
So I think they quite enjoy it, really. I think they probably want to change the wallpaper because it's rather substandard for their tastes.
Is it a bit of a B&Q nightmare or something, like the rest of us.
No, it's you know, I'll be honest, I'm cheap with wallpaper. I only spend £400 or £500 a roll on my wallpaper, and that's you know, they're not going to be able to cope with that. But it'd be great. They'd be like, it'd be like the changing rooms program, won't it? Get
they
Boris,
come round and
Boris
just say,
and
it's all
Carrie
right,
come round.
We'll
for a
find
week.
someone to pay for this. Don't worry. We'll set up a charity front. And it might be illegal, but don't worry about that.
But that'd be brilliant. What a brilliant program. When he's gone in a few weeks, they can do changing rooms. They can have him around the house. Oh my God, look at it. Carrie can't possibly. The toilet seat is barely any diamonds on it at all. And then you know, you do a $400,000 refurbishment on it.
Yeah, they could do it to Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen's house.
Yeah, even he. Oh, yes, I really wasn't. Oh, extraordinary.
Well, Pauline says, who does understand the rules indeed? Well, nobody does, frankly, and even the Prime Minister and the people who set the rules don't seem to understand it. Or if they do, they're certainly not obeying them. So I'm sure if they went up before the beak, their excuse would be they didn't really understand it, which would be an interesting way of interpreting the law. But keep asking us your questions. Let us know how your Christmas is going to be. I'm in a social bubble with my parents, so ours gets to go ahead. We're all boosted. Yay. But my daughter, who's 5, is not. And I would quite like it if she was vaccinated. They're vaccinating 5-year-olds elsewhere in the world. Millions of children have had the vaccine. It's much, much safer for them than the coronavirus, and of course it means they can keep going back to school rather than going back to a plague pit, which is what schools are going to be in the new year. Anyway, we shall see in the new year whether the JCVI lets us all actually keep our children safe. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But keep asking us your questions, and we have now, I think it's time for pour your glasses, get your hats on. If anybody asks you what you're doing, tell them it's a work meeting, because it is time for the News Agenda Christmas quiz. What an absolute blinder we've played on the credits. Right, so what we're going to do is we've got a series of questions which are about coronavirus and the past year or so in politics. We've gone over some of them already, I think, in our discussion. And what we want you to do is give us your answers in the comments, and Mark and I will discuss them as we go, and hopefully we can find some winners. The best answers and the most accurate ones may well be getting the News Agenda festive mug. So take part. You've got to be in it to win it. Right. Are you ready, Mark? Have you got your cheese ready? I've got to start drinking this wine because I sniff it and I want to drink it, but it's mixing with the Weetabix and it's...
This stuff's gorgeous.
It's all right for cheese this time of day. Wine is difficult. Anyway, question number 1. Here we go. How many parties did the Tory party have last Christmas? Mark, what do you think? From everything we've seen from the Mirror, from Pippa Crerar, from ITN and everybody else, what number of parties do you think we've opened on the Christmas Advent calendar so far?
Well, I know it. I read that you put 14 in an article a day or two ago.
Just to spin this out a bit, Mark, not just give the answer.
Oh, right. Sorry. Am I supposed to? I don't know how quizzes work. Oh, I'm sorry.
God, Richard says...
Anyway, no. My point is that that's not the right answer. That's only the ones that we've known. I mean, philosophically speaking...
Who knows?
28 million.
They're not parties until you've found a photograph of them and had it published on the front page of the Daily Mirror. But Better for Britain was correct. I think it's 14. I think it's not 15, Mike. I think the case is actually one of the 14 because it was warned about in advance. 20 is an awful lot of pessimists out there today. Better for Britain was correct, and Better for Britain gave us a good answer earlier on. So you're going to get the news, at least a News Agenda mug. Better for Britain.
I think Andrew Medlicott has put infinite, and I think that's as close as we're going to get.
Yeah. It could be any possible number, couldn't it?
I think Andrew definitely deserves a mug for that.
If you have wine and cheese all day while working, then when do you call that like 12 separate work meetings / parties? Or is that one big, long, day-long party? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. It's a philosophical question. And maybe everyone should be allowed to do that now when they go back. We should have a month to sort of to get, like, if bus drivers should be allowed to drink wine all day long while they're driving the 133 to Clapham Common with cheese. Everybody.
Yeah. Nurses on the ICU where they're checking the dialysis machines.
Go on, get this down here. Unplug that drip. Get that in there. I think that we should have a month of that to sort of compensate for the 2 years that we've suffered with this buffoon.
Exactly, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Right, question 2. Where is it? What have we got? How many children does Boris Johnson have? Oh, he's just had another one. So he's got Rose with Carrie, and he's got Wilf. So that's 2. Any guesses on how many extra he's got elsewhere?
See, these are big philosophical questions you're asking. This is like the sort of thing that you would get on a French television program on their quiz. How do we know if we are happy? How many kids does Boris Johnson have? He doesn't know.
Again, infinite, says Andrew. I think we've got a couple of winners here, which is Britain and Andrew. You're absolutely smashing it. N+1 says mine. More than any number that you give. We know of 7 is the correct answer. There's 4 in his marriage to Marina. There is 1 love child, and there are 2 with Carrie. The rest is merely a matter for rumour, and we're all children of Boris now, aren't we? In the same way, I'm a child of Thatcher. Thank you, David, for that bright and breezy note. Right, question number 3. How many people are you allowed to have over for a Christmas party? Mark, in your house, in your plague pit, how many could you invite over under the law right now?
Well, leaving aside the fact that I can't invite anyone because my boy's still testing positive, then if that wasn't the case, I don't know. People have given up with the rules, haven't they? Once he sort of came out and his rules were you can attend a party, but only if it has been cancelled. All that sort of stuff that he does. You must go to work, but are not allowed to go there. And I just don't know. It used to be 6, but that's probably
Laura, Andrea, Suzanne, Better for Britain, all saying 6. Richard says 10. Mike was right. When it was infinite in this country, in England, you are allowed to invite as many people as you like.
An infinite number.
An infinite number. There is no call it a work party and you're fine. In Northern Ireland, though, it is a limit of 30. Right. Dean says just open house. So if you open your window, you're probably not too bad. Who knows? But it would be pretty chilly. And it's going to rain on Christmas Day. So also not very nice. So we'll have to see. But a lot of the answers to these questions turn out to be infinite, don't they? We haven't planned this very well. Right. What's the next question, please? This is the question that Allegra Stratton asked in that mock press conference. Does the Prime Minister condone Christmas parties? Ask Boris. Well, yeah, that would be nice if he ever was here, but he's not. Oh, someone's rung me. Go away. Does the Prime Minister condone Christmas parties, Mark?
Again, I think this is one of those sorts of Boris Johnson answers. You condone the party, but if it's only if nobody's enjoying it. If someone starts to enjoy it, they must leave immediately. Something like that.
You've got to have a cautious Christmas party, I think, is the guidance. So the Prime Minister does apparently condone Christmas parties. He says parties are fine. He says Christmas is on. Remember, this is his fetish. This is his personal kink. He likes having Christmas. But during lockdowns, you're only allowed, as Andrew says there, to be in a garden in a work meeting when it's not a party, and it happens in the past and no one can investigate it anyway.
Do you have to have it? If you have a string quartet, it's loud or I think the next one, I bet the Mirror's got this and they're not yet published it. I reckon it'll turn out that Jacob Rees-Mogg had a jousting party on Christmas Eve. 5,000 people in his grounds having a jousting party, and he'll claim that it was actually a vaccination party because there was a little bit of vaccine on the end of the lance. And that's how we'll try and get away with it.
Tell you what, though, I bet anything one of you like that Mrs. Hancock is wondering how many times her husband said he had to go to a work thing. And that it was actually.
Yes.
Poor Mrs. Hancock. She's had a bit of a grim old time.
She's not done well out of COVID, is she?
No. Well, maybe she has. In the long run, hopefully she's cashing it in. Better for Britain says answer the phone because it might be Boris wanting to join in. I don't think it is. No. Right. Next question. How many lockdowns have we had so far. And bearing in mind, this is a 5-year fight. So they will not. This is a number which is going to spread and span. But how many lockdowns has the government of the United Kingdom ordered since the start of COVID? 2, says Better for Britain. What do you rank, Mark?
No, I think it's more than that. But again, it's been a sort of long continuous thing, isn't it? And I don't like, I know in France they're calling this the 5th wave of COVID, this current bit, but it all depends how you count it. It's marvelous, isn't it? It's marvelous how it sort of opened us up to this philosophical world of numbers. What is a lie? What is the truth? This sort of it's marvelous how people like,
why do statistics matter? Can we just ignore stuff?
This is a very Trumpy Johnson-y sort of world where there's no definite answer. What is a party? What is a work meeting?
Yeah, Joe's got it right. Well, no, not really too many. Some could say too few. The correct answer is 3, which most people have got. We had the first one in spring 2020. We had another one in the November, a short one, if you remember, for a month. And then we had another one last winter. Not enough, says Gailey. Whether or not we're going to have any more in 2022, we should have to wait and see, won't we? But no, it's 3 so far. So let's just wait and see. Of course, unless, of course, you're in Leicester, in which case, or been shielding, in which case it's just been pretty much one rolling lockdown for you. So it's an infinite number depending on your personal circumstances, it would appear. Right, next question, please. How many COVID variants that originated overseas has Boris Johnson imported to the UK? Now, we had the original Wu flu, the Chinese strain. Then we made the next one in Kent, in God's own county, down here, the Alpha strain. Then there's been a few around the world which didn't cause us too many problems. I think there's one in South America that didn't get in, really. We had Beta. That was from Africa. Angela thinks we've had 3 strains. That's 1 Beta strain. There was the Delta strain, very famously from India, which 7. Very pessimistic, Richard. There was the Delta strain, which came in from India because Boris Johnson left the borders open because he wanted to go and see Modi and have his picture taken. And now we've got Omicron. So, Danielle, I think you're right. I think that's 3. Has anyone got any more than that? Mark, is that right?
I don't know, but I wonder if he'll boast about this. If we hadn't left the EU, then we wouldn't have been able to trade in all these different variants from around the world, from countries such as Botswana, and indeed, if we'd been only able just a few more months, we could have done the deal with South America that meant that we could have had their one in as well. Exactly. But, we're working. I can assure you that we are working on that. There'll be which countries haven't had one? Kent's had one, hasn't it?
Yeah, Kent, we made the first one. We were there first. Yeah. Like with everything.
Exactly, as you're saying.
First, the quickest. Jackie says, why do the media constantly have a go at Boris? Do you think anyone else could have coped with the last 2 years? No, I don't believe so. Certainly not Corbyn or Starmer, 3 exclamation marks. Boris is toast if he does and toast if he doesn't.
That's a very good point. It's just so unfair. Of all the people who've suffered in the last few years, it's been Boris Johnson, and you're quite right, Jackie. I really don't know what's the matter with us.
I think, Jackie, your central point that anyone would find this very difficult and there would be a price to pay for whoever is Prime Minister during this is absolutely correct. I'm not saying that Corbyn would be anywhere better. I do think probably Starmer would be better. And I think there are people on the Tory benches who would do a better job as well. Because the fundamental issue is being a grown-up and listening to the scientists and doing things when you're urged to do them. For example, the scientists urge Plan B, which is just the wearing of masks, right? And trying not to socialise too much. They urged that on October the 13th. Boris Johnson waited 8 weeks and 1 day, 57 days, until he actually made that the rule. And in those 8 weeks, Omicron took hold. That's the fundamental problem, is doing things when it's a good idea to do them as opposed to when it's too late.
Well, also, I think that anyone else would have not been able to, would have been exactly the same, faced with exactly the same problem. They would have introduced a rule to say that now nobody is allowed to associate with anyone else, even if it's a relative suffering in hospital, and then gone and got pissed with 50 of their mates in a room. Anyone else would have done it. There's just no way you can't do it. So I think Jackie makes a very good point. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn's never seen not having a party with 50 other people and drinking wine and having cheese.
Party. He was caught having a party against the rules with more than whatever it was, 6 people at the time. And that was published. So the media does tend to do the other side as well, actually. Although, of course, he wasn't Labour leader by then, so it didn't really matter quite so much.
Yes, I think if you're trying to construct an argument that the media has been overly kind to Jeremy Corbyn over the years, that'd be a very, very difficult proposition for your little, what do you call it, for your PhD, whatever it is.
Exactly. So no, there is. What was I going to say? It's the wine. It's gone to my head. So there is some stuff about Boris Johnson, and he has had a lot of flack. Let's admit it, but bear in mind, the pictures of these parties were taken by people who work for him a year ago. And they're the ones who are leaking it. And they're the ones who are putting it out there because they now start to feel that this is all going very badly and that there's something going on with...
Do you know who it is?
I don't know, no. But it's someone who's got access to all of those people. So, I mean, well done, keep at it. And I think it seems to be more than one person as well. So that's the thing. Hold in multiple directions, leaks coming out in different directions to different media. So that is an issue that the government doesn't approve of either, I'm afraid. And Rosemary says he didn't even attend Cobra. On Sunday, there was a Cobra meeting and he didn't go. He was at Chequers and was doing whatever he was doing down there. So I don't think the media can be blamed for that, really. Anyway, next question. How many months after your second jab are you supposed to get your booster? Now, it was originally going to be 6 months, wasn't it? And then they brought it forward to say you could book it after 5 months, although as regular viewers of this show know, I was completely unable to do so. And what is it now? Does anybody know how many months you're supposed to get your booster after? Andrew, you're absolutely smashing this today. And Better for Britain, you're doing very, very well, the pair of you. It's now 3 months. Well done. Congratulations. If it's more than 3 months since your last jab, even if your appointment is some way off, you can still go to a walk-in centre. They will still try and boost you. I managed to do it in about 5 minutes flat, a whole week before my appointment. So get yourself down there and get jabbed up. I think the Pfizer booster is supposed to be a bit grim, but the Moderna booster that I had was absolutely fine. So get down there and get boosted. And you all seem to know it's 3 months. So yay, that's good. People are being a bit more sensible. Next question, please. Next slide, please. Why should we give you a News Agenda mug? Now, Mark, you've got a News Agenda mug, although that's in your plague-ridden house at the moment. You can't really enjoy it in quite the same way. How have you found it?
I've delighted in it. I've swapped it between me. I've got a Crystal Palace mug and a News Agenda mug, and it's almost got equal billing in the house.
Equal billing with the palace. Nice.
Yeah, that's high. That's exalted status. That's
I think so.
With Zaha mug and a News Agenda mug.
Yeah, there you go. That's not grim. Okay, next slide, please. Is there another slide? There are some more questions. I'm pretty certain. There we go. Who forms the main opposition? Obviously, wine and cheese going on backstage as well. Who forms the main opposition to the government these days? Who do you think it is, Mark?
Gary Neville, Ant and Dec, Marcus.
Ant and Dec are doing a blinding job, aren't they? Wow.
Magnificent.
Evening, Prime Minister.
That's brilliant. That was brilliant. And then when they sort of go, oh, this is all stuff just only talked about in the Westminster bubble, you'd have to go, right, the Westminster bubble now includes Ant and Dec, anyone who drives around the M25, people who go to the darts. It's just those people. All of those people are
and
just
Marcus
people
Rashford.
And Marcus Rashford, who should clearly be at the very least Chancellor. I think there should be a sporting government in waiting with Neville and Judy Murray and Dina Asher-Smith and marvellous. I'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? And and definitely Gary Neville.
Tory backbenchers, arguably, they are causing him an awful lot of problems, just as they did with John Major as well. Paul Kennard says the Mirror. Well done. That's just bang on. Bang on. You're getting a mug. And But I think personally, the best leader of the opposition we've got at the moment is Pippa Crerar, our political editor, who's absolutely smashed it with the party exposés and the stories, which led to all the Ant and Dec, all the other stuff, apart from Marcus Rashford, who's been ploughing his own course for a while.
Well, I wonder whether as a result of this, because Boris Johnson, I think it's not impossible that Boris Johnson is going to be ousted very, very soon. And I think if that happens, then possibly the Daily Mirror might be asked to form an interim government.
Well, we can do that. I think if we had an interim government, right, as you said, Marcus Rashford for Chancellor, because he plainly knows how to make a couple of quid go a long way. Yeah. And he's understands the value of money and wants to feed children, all of which seems like a good idea for me and a Chancellor. And then I think we should obviously have probably some kind of a doctor or nurse as a health secretary, because they do actually know how things work. Or one of those things that various governments have complained about, the faceless bureaucrats of the NHS, who actually, thank you, PJ, it's not me though, the faceless bureaucrats who actually keep the damn thing on the road, right? Who run the records, who move the beds around, who get the logistics in place, who manage to organise the money. Without bureaucracy, the NHS wouldn't exist. So every time any politician says to you, we need to just put money into frontline medics and sod the rest of them, that's 50% of the staff workforce they're talking about. So yeah, a faceless bureaucrat would be quite nice. Don't put Ant and Dec in charge of school meals. No.
That'd be brilliant. No. What did you do at school today, darling? Well, I put my head in a box and then centipedes were poured on top of it.
And I had to eat them because that was all we had. I had Weevil pizza. It would teach them the value of a decent meal, though, wouldn't it? So maybe that's a...
Maybe it's great. They should be in charge of the economy. How's it going to go? It all depends on whether or not Jenny here manages to find the store in all the Huntsman Spaders.
Gary Neville's for housing, according to Gailey. I think Pippa Crerar should be Prime Minister easily, because she's got everyone's scared witless of her. Number one, right? She's got the power to actually control her cabinet or cabinet, depending how you feel about these things. And she knows where right and wrong is and has some kind of principles. So that's what you need in a prime minister, I would have thought. And she does appear to be able to listen to scientists and actually understand what they're saying. So Pippa for PM, Marcus for Chancellor, Ant and Dec for education. And for health? A faceless bureaucrat for health. There you go. That's sorted. Okay, next slide, please. What does SAGE stand for? Mark, do you have the tiniest idea about the people that we've been listening to for the last 2 years?
Right. I didn't have the tiniest idea. Then just before this started, you told me what it stood for. And now, once again, I don't have the tiniest idea.
I forgot as well.
To me, it's the same as when I watch Only Connect and Victoria Corrin says the answer. And I think if you now ask the question again, I'd still go, I don't know. And that's
well, I
don't
got it wrong. I thought it was a scientific advisory group of experts. It is actually the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, not stuffing, Howard. No, that'd be Sage and Onion, duh, or Paxo. That's what would be a better acronym. I'm just calling them Paxo. And no, Isabel, they're not liars. There is a thing about statistical modelling, right? So you model what will happen in a certain range of circumstances. And then if those things don't necessarily happen because people behave differently or behave more sensibly, then the model starts to look incorrect. But not because it was incorrect, because people have changed their behaviour. That's why you publish the statistical models, you see? It kind of pushes people into behaving better. Not the State Advisory Group of Experts, Mike, but a good guess. Okay, next slide, please. Which vaccine is the best vaccine? Mark, which ones have you had?
I don't know.
You've got no idea what's in your arm.
No idea at all. I've went down to a hall and then... someone said, come in here. And I think I was chatting to them about something. And then they said, it's done now. And I went, I don't know.
Okay.
I could have been. I did sort of think. I didn't even see it, so it's possible I haven't been done, and I'm part of some grand experiment. And it was maybe some Trump supporter, and it was Domestos.
It could be a microchip. Who knows? They could
Could be. It could be a microchip because the only effect that it had on me was that night I did start knocking on all the doors in the street trying to sell Microsoft Word family packages for $69.99.
Well, there you go.
So it's possible it was put in there by Bill Gates.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think the booster one I had was different to the other two, I believe.
Right. Well, lots of people are saying Pfizer. Linda says Moderna for Omicron. The best vaccine is the one that's in your arm, the one that's working and the one that's keeping you safe. Note to all anti-vaxxers, it's no good complaining about it unless it's not going to help you at all. But having it in your arm will help you significantly. Okay, we've got one more question. Oh, Better Britain says Moderna's the best against Omicron, produces more antibodies than Pfizer. Does it?
All right, there you go.
Moderna is the booster, so I'm happy then, aren't I? Okay, one more question, and then that's the end of our Christmas quiz. Here we go. To the nearest 1,000, how many times has Boris Johnson lied since becoming Prime Minister in July 2019? Anybody? I think I'm getting a lot of answers that say infinite again.
Yeah.
To the nearest 1,000.
Well, the thing is, he's what is fascinating. It'd be a fascinating case study, you know, a bit like people studied the Elephant Man in Victorian times. It'd be a fascinating case study, wouldn't he? Because he even lies when he doesn't need to lie. When he was surrounded by journalists in a hospital and someone said, why have you brought all these journalists? There are no journalists here. Surrounded by, he can't help it. He's the kid at school that couldn't help lying, who comes in and says, my dad invented zebras. You know, I've got the biggest collection of grapes in the world. I'm married to Marilyn Monroe, whatever, you know, these people, I've got a giant ostrich in my bedroom. You know, those kids who just couldn't help lying. And he's like that. And I think once he's gone, he should be studied. He should be kept in a room like Hannibal Lecter, just wandering around while scientists just study him, just lying all day and that all day. I led the Hannibal across the Alps, you know, just people can study his brain.
It's pathological, isn't it?
It's pathological. So it's one long lie, a bit like you were saying with the lockdowns, or there's just one long continuous one. That's the case with him. It's just one long lie.
Yeah. Gailey says 1,000 times the number of days he's been Prime Minister. So that would be about 700,000. Crikey.
Do you think he lies in his sleep? Do you think he lays there in his sleep going, I've never been to a party. I think even in his sleep, he snores.
He actually lied to Keir Starmer in the House of Commons, didn't he? After Keir Starmer helped all the Labour votes to get the Plan B restrictions through. And Keir said, well, you relied on us to help you get it through. And Boris Johnson goes, no, I didn't. Having had 100 rebels on his own back benches, which meant he can't help it. It's an illness. In any normal, decent society, you'd just be the crazy person in the corner of the pub who was just sort of ranting and going, "Oh, there's old Boris. Go on, give him a light, Al. He's all right." He said he's the person who discovered tomatoes this morning. He's all right. And this is the thing: if he was not posh, he would be on benefits. He would not be employable. He would not be credible. He'd be the bloke in the corner of the pub.
Yes, and all the people who he is currently in charge of in the cabinet would be coming out every day going, why should the British people have to pay benefits to someone this stupid?
Exactly. And I think, Mike, you mean Jay from the In-Betweeners. And there you have wound up.
Yes, exactly him.
Wound up a very solid year of news agenda additions by comments by absolutely losing it at the end. Sorry, Mike. You might have to send your money back. Right. Thank you. It is 10 o'clock. We've been on this for 3/4 of an hour now. It's time to get on to our next work meeting. So thank you, Mark, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for taking part. And most importantly, I want to thank a couple of our backstage gremlins, Lauren and Ed, who deal with these credits, who deal with the slides, who deal with the diva demands of their presenter at the last minute. You both rock. This would not be possible without you. So thank you very much, Lauren and Ed, backstage. Otherwise, it'd just be me screaming into the void. Join us again. We're back next year on Wednesday, January the 5th, for the next edition of the News Agenda, the start of 2022. Let's hope there's not a lockdown. Let's hope we're all still there. Bye-bye, everybody. See you on the other side. Cheers.